The mean projection from Football Outsiders I thought was pretty interesting here. The mean projection, so their Football Outsiders, like you were saying that they were like way more down on the Browns than most people in whatever. They seem to be much higher on the Lions than most people are. Their mean projection for wins is 7.2.
Yes. In fact, when I had Aaron Schatz, the founder of Football Outsiders, on a numbers game, I dared couple the Texans and David Culley with Dan Campbell and the Lions, and he quickly shot back.
They are, and they might not be off market. Who knows? Maybe they will prove to be incredibly smart. But again, the win total is either 5 or 4.5, depending on where you look right now. And if you look at Sharp Football, they have a projection at 5 wins. If you look at Pro Football Focus, they are projected at 5.4 wins. So they are a full 1.5 to 2 wins higher than the other kind of big projection systems, simulation systems, and things out there. They haven't been a playoff contender nearly a quarter of the time, which is like a 9 to 11 win team. They haven't 23.8% of the time. So they are either going to be very, very right or very, very wrong this year over Football Outsiders on this Lions team. Sharp Football says 7th toughest schedule in the entire NFL. Pro Football Focus has them as their 32nd power ranked team, even behind the Texans this year. As I said, simulated at 5.5 wins for them. The offensive line is actually good. So now that they've added Penei Sewell, what you have here is Taylor Decker actually had a career year last year for this team. He was 12th overall amongst tackles, and so he's going to play left tackle. Then you put Penei Sewell at right tackle for the time being until he kind of rounds out, probably move him over to left tackle in year 2 or 3. But they're going to have a really good tackle combo for this team. Sewell posted the highest overall grade at Pro Football Focus since 2014 for an offensive tackle. In his 2019 season, he opted out in 2020, but it was the the 2019 season, the highest overall grade for an offensive tackle that they have ever had. Frank Ragnow is a name you probably have heard of if you've studied offensive lines before. He is just a super solid offensive lineman. He was the 3rd overall ranked center last year in the NFL. So, I mean, look, you've got a pretty good foundation of an offensive line here. Unfortunately, it's just the quarterback that's going to be they're going to be hiking the ball to every time. Defensive line, 24th heading into the season here. They did make a bunch of free agent acquisitions to improve the line. Brockers, McNeil, we just talked about. Onwuzurike is another guy that they signed as a defensive lineman, but they're going to get Trey Flowers back, but he's had a real problem staying healthy over the course of his career. If he were to be healthy, he's actually a pretty good defensive lineman, like when he's actually playing. But the problem is, he just doesn't stay healthy very often. So, look, a lot of continuity issues here. They're going to have to figure out a way to make all that gel. But, it shouldn't be like a bottom of the barrel defensive line, but it's not going to be good for sure. The secondary is probably going to be pretty terrible. They are one of the bottom 3 heading into the season here. If they play up to potential, they could probably at least get into maybe that more 20th type range or something like that. But you're putting a ton of pressure on Jeff Okudah here, who is in his 2nd year, and he led all corners in yards allowed per coverage snap in his rookie season. Now, listen, it's very tough to play corner as a rookie in the NFL. We do see these corners really increase and produce a much, much better in their 2nd and 3rd and 4th years because, look, I mean, you're going up against the very best wide receiver you ever cover in college is who you're going up against every single week, right? Like in the NFL, and it's just very, very hard for these rookie corners to be able to perform up to the level. So again, Jeff Okudah got a ton of pressure on him. Quentin Dunbar is going to start opposite him. He's coming off of a terrible, terrible season, so he's going to have to really step back up to where he might have been several years ago. Tracy Walker had also another horrible down year as well for this team. So it's just a bunch of guys with a young guy in Okudah they're going to have to really rely on, and then just you're going to need guys to really play above where they have over the last few seasons. So secondary could be a huge problem. But, I mean, I think we know where the glaring thing is here, and that's with Jared Goff. I mean, Pro Football Focus ranked all 32 starting quarterbacks over the course of, heading into 2021. Goff came in at 26th. He was only ahead of Cam Newton, Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, Jalen Hurts, and Drew Lock, who, by the way, didn't even win the job. So, like, you know, like those are the only people that he's ahead of, right? And so you can kind of see what they think of him. And look, Jared Goff, I think, there's an interesting bet out there at DraftKings for most interceptions thrown over the course of the season. I think Jared Goff is a pretty decent candidate for something like this because, again, they didn't pay this dude, like they didn't trade for him and are going to pay him $20 million, I don't think, to bench him. Now, we did mention yesterday there's at least a chance maybe that they could, but I find it very hard to believe that he's not just kind of like, okay, we're going to be terrible anyway. Go out there, you be terrible. Let's get a high draft pick and start planning for the future with the team here. And so I can't imagine he gets benched over the course of the season. And so I think it's an interesting bet at Goff at 8-1 to lead the league in interceptions. If I was betting anything on this team, I think that would be the bet that I like the most because, again, the only other guys that you think could be in contention here are going to be playing on teams that, you know, like Ryan Fitzpatrick has shorter odds than Jared Goff, but, like, we believe that Washington's going to be good. So if you're ahead in games, again, you start the clock by running. This team's going to be behind in so many games, and he's going to be throwing so often. And Jared Goff's just not any good. And so I think he could lead the league in interceptions pretty easily. I like that bet. And outside of that, I'm just going to sit back and hopefully not have to endure too many of these games, except unless, you know, Survivor, which I will be picking on this team fairly often.
I always like to come up with the bet that I like the best of all of these teams, 32 teams, 32 shows. And I think with the Lions, the thing that sort of makes its way into my head is they're going to be a great team to bet against in game because it is Anthony Lynn and it is Dan Campbell. And they botched the end of that first preseason game. I know a lot of people went crazy about it. I didn't go that crazy about it because it is preseason. You don't know what they're trying to do. But it certainly didn't affirm anything about this team. By the way, here's the quote that Kelly was talking about earlier. This is Dan Campbell. Quote, from his opening press conference, "We're going to kick you in the teeth, and when you punch us back, we're going to smile at you. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up, and on the way, we're going to bite a kneecap off."
There it is.
So, again,
it wasn't munch, it was bite. I thought it was munch a kneecap. It was bite a kneecap.
If you're a Detroit Lion fan, this is the work of Chris Spielman. This is exactly a guy in Dan Campbell that Chris Spielman can relate to. The problem is that this is not good at the top of your team in the National Football
And you're talking
League.
about betting against them in game. I mean, like, so you're trying to play comeback in games. You have Jared Goff at quarterback, and your receivers are Tyrell Williams, who, again, didn't play a snap last year because of injury. Brashad Perryman, who's had one good NFL season in his entire career after being widely considered a bust, and apparently has been very much underperforming so far for the team in camp. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown, like I just said, a fourth-round rookie who's going to have to start for this team. Maybe Khalif Raymond finds the field or something like that, Quintez Cephas or whatever. But again, like, that's who you're trying to play catch-up with. So Jared Goff and those wide receivers and stuff. So I love that angle for a team like this.